The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that grave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was the point definitely settled, but the very devotedness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is undressed with retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as so to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I ever Fortunato cause to doubt my good will. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was the thought of his humiliation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit their opportunity. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity. To practice imposture upon the British and Australian millionaires. In painting and gemmary, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I always skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was submerged by the carnival cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wrangling his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkable well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for an Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival?" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of worrying a bargain." "Amontillado? I have my doubts. Amontillado, and I must satisfy them. Amontillado! As you are engaged, I am only my way to ludicrous. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, ludicrous cannot tell Amontillado from sherry, and yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match from your own. Come, let us go." "Whither?" "To your vaults." "My friend, no, I will not impose on your good nature. I persevere that you have an engagement." "Ludicrous, I have no engagement. Come." "My friend, no, it is the engagement, but the severe cold which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are unstretchably damp. They are encrusted with nitrate. Let us go. Nevertheless, the cold is merely nothing. Amontillado you have imposed upon, and as for ludicrous, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, and putting me on the mask of black silk, and drawing a reliquary closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to Plazou. There were no attendants at home. They had all absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance one and for all. As soon as my back was turned, I took from their cones 2 flambergs, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of the room to the archway that led into the vault. I passed down a long, winding staircase, requesting him to come cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together among the damp ground of the catacombs of the Monsieurs. The gout of my friend was unsteady, and bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," he said. "It is further on," said I, "but observe the white web work which gleams from the cavern walls." He turned to me, and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled rheum of intoxication. "Nitrate?" he asked, at length. "Nitrate," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. Come, I said, with decision. We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as I once was. You are a man to be missed. For me is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is ludicrous. Enough, he said. The cough's a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true, I replied, and indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you should use all proper caution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from being damp. Here, I knocked off the neck of a bottle with I drew a long roll from his fellows that lay upon the mould. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He said it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me firmly, while his bells jingled. I drink, he said, to the buried response around us, and I to you your long life. He again took my arm, and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. The Montrous, I replied, were great and numerous family. I forgot your arms. A huge human footer in a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the head. And the motto? Nemo me impune lacet. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and his bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm. With the Medoc we had passed through long walls of piled skeletons with casks and punctures intermigrating into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again. At this time, I made a bold seize Fortunato by the arm and the elbow. The nitrate, I said, see, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river bed. The drops of moisture tickle among the bones. Come on, we will go back. Here, it is too late. Your cough, it is nothing, he said. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc. I broke and reached him the flagon de Grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gestonation. I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement. A gestock one. You do not comprehend, he said. Not I replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, yes, I said. Yes, yes. You, impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said. A sign. It is, I answered, producing from beneath the folds of the relinquently a trowel. You jest, he exclaimed, recoiling a few pieces. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches. Descending, passed on, descending again, arrived at a deep crypt, in which foulness in the air caused our flame bricks rather to glow than flame. At the most end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides into this interior crypt were still ornamented in the manner. From the 4th side the bones had been thrown down, and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall, thus exposed by a displacing by the bones, we were persevered, a still interior crypt or recess, in depth about 4 feet in width, 3 height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no special use within itself, but formed merely an interval between 2 of the colossal supports in the roof of the catacomb, and was backed by one of the smooth-standing walls of solid granite. It was then in vain, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry the depth of the recess. Its tremention the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for ludicrous, he is enormous, interrupted my friend, as he stopped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached an exterior of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and flattered him to see granite. At its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other, about 2 feet horizontally. From one of those depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links above his waist, it was a work of few seconds to secure it. He was too much astonished to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help the feeling of the nitrate. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, you implore you to return. No! Then I must positively leave you. But I first render you all a little attention to my power. The Amontillado, ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied, the Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones which that I had spoken, throwing them aside. I soon uncovered a quantity of building stones and mortar, With these materials and with my aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance to the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had was of the low moaning cry from the death of the races. It was not a cry from a drunken man. There was then a long, obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and then the third, and then the fourth. And then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which I might hearken to it, but it was more satisfaction. I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subdued, they resumed the trowel, and finished without interruption the fifth, sixth, and seventh layer. The wall was now nearly complete at the level of my breast. I again paused, holding the flame bracts over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly through the throat of the chained firm, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled, unseating my rapier. I began to grope it without the recess, but then I thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon my solid fabric of the catacombs, and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed him in volume and strength. I did this, and clamor grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing too close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with this weight. I placed it partially in its distinct position, but now there came from out of the niche a low laugh, and erected hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha ha, he he he, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it in the Plaza. He he he, over our wine. He he he." "The Amontillado," I said. "He he he he, yes, the Amontillado. But it is not going late. Will not be awaiting us at the Plaza, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone. For the love of God, master." "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer. Still I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and left it fall within. There came forth in return only jingle of bells. My heart grew sick. It was dampness of the catacombs that made it so. I hesitated to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. It plastered up. Against the new masonry I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century no mortal has disturbed them. In pace